Ahoy there, me hearties and me brainies. Yeah, that works. You got a heart, you got a brain. Me hearties and me brainies. You figure out which one you are. All right. And it's very apt because today we're talking about the scholarly, the archaeologist pirates. The pirates that read books, matey. That sailed the high seas not for the treasure, but for the pure knowledge. Learning about the true history of the world. Uncovering ancient stones with glyphs on them that may or may not allude to ancient weapons or the true history of the world. Matey. Yes, okay. So, hello everyone, Tekking and Barry here, and welcome back to the Rolls on the High Seas series, where we take a look at all the different positions that pirates have in the One Piece world, talk about them in the context of that story, but also look at them in the context of actual history. So in the first episode, we looked at pirate captains like Luffy, Eustace Kid, Law, and everybody, and also talked about how pirate captains like the historical Blackbeard operated, okay? Now, certainly there were pirate captains in real life, and there were pirate captains in One Piece, so that fits. But with this episode, we're going to be looking at the scholars, or the archaeologists, a position that certainly exists in the One Piece world, but didn't really exactly fit historically. So we're going to be taking a look into that. Also, the way I'm determining which of these videos to do next is I'm actually going to be rolling a dice, a D10, and that's also rolls on the high seas. See, there you go. It all clicks together. However, I did roll the dice for this episode, but obviously you've already seen it because I've titled the video and used the thumbnail and put Robin back here. Also, by the way, I love this piece of glass art back here, but it's kind of hard because the light from the reflection. I think we're good. Also, I wanted to make sure her cleavage is in the shot. Are we good? Are we all right? Yeah, we're okay. So, yeah, obviously we already know what we're talking about today, but I did roll the dice, and it actually did just because Robin is one of my favorite characters, I didn't fudge it. It really did land on a 7, and as we see with this awesome new reference table we have, 7 is archaeologists, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So at the end of every one of these episodes, kind of like how I did the My Hero Academia reviews, I'll be, the character discussions, I'll be rolling the D10 again, and based on the reference table, that'll be the next video we discuss. All right, so let's just go with that. So, this is a very interesting position because even in the context of the One Piece world, scholars or archaeologists are not very prevalent on pirate crews. Robin and Blackbeard are really the only examples I can think of. And yes, Blackbeard is sort of an archaeologist in and of his own right. It was mentioned by Oda in an SBS. If the supernovas, or I think it was like the supernovas, or if the warlords had jobs in our modern world, you know, what would they be? And Blackbeard's was listed as historian or archaeologist, okay? Also with the idea of Blackbeard's connection with Roxy Zebek and everything, you can kind of see that, all right? Whatever Blackbeard is plotting, it seems like he has an idea. He has a root in understanding this, and I think it was even mentioned at one point that his hobby in the One Piece world is reading about history, all right? So you could call him at least a little bit of at least a history buff. Maybe not an outright scholar or anything. I don't think Blackbeard went to college. Does college exist in the One Piece world? Well, no, I don't think it does. There is certainly higher education, but since O'Hara got wiped off the face of the map, probably not anymore. But it did exist kind of at some point. But of course, the most famous scholar, archaeologist that is also a pirate is, of course, the Straw Hats archaeologist, Nico Robin. And her role on the crew is essentially, yes, to uncover the true history of the world by the means of uncovering poneglyphs and reading them, deciphering them. Also is insanely important to the crew at large because their main goal is to reach Laugh Tale, find the One Piece, so Luffy can become king of the pirates, and we find out at Zou the only way to get there is to decipher the road poneglyphs. So that would have really sucked if, like, they never invited Robin on the crew. Well, basically, actually, Robin invited herself on the crew. I think she's actually the only person that has done that, where she's just like, I got nowhere else to go. I'm just part of your crew now. And Luffy's just like, yeah, okay. Like, he didn't really have an objection to it. Everybody else on the crew pretty much did. Like, Zoro did not trust Robin for a long time. That is something a lot of people forget about because it's been so long at this point and the crew is just like a family. But there was a while there where Robin and Zoro did not really get along. Or rather, Robin didn't really have a problem with Zoro. Zoro was just kind of like, she's gonna probably stab us in the back at some point, you know what I mean? And eventually throughout the course of like Skypiea and then after Enies Lobby, they were all family again. But yeah, it's that's something to remember there. So if they didn't have Robin by the time they reached Zoe, though, then they would have been kind of like up shit creek without a paddle. And it's like, oh no, we should have. If only we knew somebody that could read poneglyphs. Wait. Actually, I should do a video there. What if Robin never joined the Straw Hat Pirates? I could do a series about all of the Straw Hats on whether or not they never joined the Straw Hat Pirates and where they would be at right now. So that's a series for another day, another month, another year. But what we're talking about today is scholars. All right, so were there scholars on pirate crews historically way back in the day? Well, yes and no. Like, it's really just a individual by individual thing. You gotta understand, most of the pirates back then were like ex-navy, right? Like, the idea is they were part of a navy of a certain country or kingdom or empire or whatever, and it was like, we think we're feeling like, you know, injustice here, we're not getting paid enough, or any number of reasons for them to rebel. So they decided, you know what, we're just gonna go rogue, and we're just gonna become pirates, and we're gonna sail the black flag, and we're just gonna sail the seas, and we're gonna plunder. And that's way more of a more fair, efficient way of doing this, rather than obeying the government or the monarchy or whatever they were following at that time, right? Now, because you're ex-military, you might also have some people on pirate crews that were well-read, people that did know maybe a decent amount of history and everything, but scholars and archaeologists were certainly not like requirements on a pirate ship. You know, it's not like they were getting together a pirate crew. It was like, all right, matey, we're forming a pirate crew. Here's the deal. I'm gonna be the captain. He's gonna be my quartermaster. That's gonna be our doctor. He's gonna be our carpenter. And, okay, I think we're good. Oh, wait, no, we don't have a scholar. Can anybody read? It's 1640 in England. Can anybody read? Oh, okay, nobody, like, everybody kind of, like, sheepishly just kind of like, wait, I can read? It's like, well, wait, was that the number one or the alphabet one? Yeah, that be the alphabet one, matey. Yeah, okay, then no. It's like, all right, well, I guess we can't set sail then, damn it! We were gonna do a pirate thing and raise the black flag and get a bunch of treasure, but we just don't have anybody that can read. Dang it! You know, and then that's it. No, obviously that's not the situation it went, and in fact, the literacy rate here of that was actually very low. Literacy rate in England in the 1640s was only around 30% for males, rising to 60% in the mid-18th century. And then in France, the rate of literacy around 1690, so the end of the 17th century, was around 29% for men and only 14% for women. Eventually, this increased to 48 and then 27%, but that's not until the 19th century. Piracy was mostly active around the 16th and 17th centuries. That's when, like, Edward Teach or Edward Thatch as Blackbeard was, like, active, okay? So that's like the era I'm looking at here. So yeah, literacy was pretty low, and also there's a big difference. Well, maybe not so much back then, because like if you did have the ability to read, if you were literate, it probably meant you came from an upbringing that gave you decent schooling. So if you were literate back then, you probably did know at least a little bit more about the world and about history and stuff. But also keep in mind, this was like the 16th, 17th century, where, you know, books and things might have not have been as commonplace to just get your hands on and everything like that. So, yeah, the idea of scholars and archaeologists being like an actual position on a pirate crew is rather fantastical and silly. It didn't happen. It didn't exist. Hell, when we get to cooks, there wasn't even really a dedicated position for them on the crew. Usually the cook or the chef was just like a normal crew member that like just was like kind of decent at cooking. You know, it's like who on the crew can cook the best? And the best is a very relative term here, okay? So a lot of time pirate crews was just like, okay, we got a captain, we got a quartermaster, someone who's a sawbones or a doctor, someone that can fix the ship up, can like patch it up like a carpenter. And that's really like the core of what we're going to need sailing around, okay? We don't need to have like somebody in particular to know about the history of a certain island or a certain kingdom or something. That kind of fits more for like fiction and like, you know, D&D campaigns rather than like historically accurate pirates, all right? Now, you know, there's something that could definitely come in handy there, right? If you had a scholar on board that knew a lot about, for example, a particular kingdom, maybe a particular navy, so somebody that's ex-navy might also know stuff about maybe not necessarily the history of a kingdom, but the way that the navy is laid out, maybe the way that certain boats are, or where they're docked at certain times, or where the major ports are, or like a good position for like a good choke point to like ambush a navy vessel or to ambush a ship that has treasure on it. Like somebody that knows a lot about that kind of stuff. Like, you know, I lived in this kingdom and I grew up in here in the docks and I was the dock master, or I was an assistant to the dock master, and I kept records of all this stuff and all the goods and everything that was coming in and out of the port. And I know that at this time, at this day, this ship that's leaving the dock or coming into the dock is going to have a lot of provisions, or is going to have some treasure or whatever. That should be the opportunity for us to attack. You know, so information is definitely crucial. It's just the information that like Robin specializes in, like archaeology and stuff, which even during this time period, you know, 16th, 17th century in our world, was sort of in its infancy. You know what I mean? Yeah, that stuff really didn't start getting booming until like the 19th century with like archaeology and stuff like that. Because, of course, what you gotta remember is that historically, being a pirate was about making money. It was a business, okay? It was not about a bunch of pirates hanging out together, telling stories, getting drunk, and singing songs. They did do those things, especially maybe after they got a big score or something, like, hey, Captain, today was great! We've sacked an enemy ship and only one person got killed! Plus, we got all this food and treasure! Let's drink! You know, time to ship off the crew, time to whip up Brinks's brew. I messed up this whole damn song. You'd think I would know it by now, but I don't know all the lyrics, so I'm just going with the beat. Now I'm even messing that up. Yo ho 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 ho. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure at certain points they would be happy and merry and they would sing, especially when there was a lot of grog involved with high alcohol content, right? But it was about making money, all right? So if they did have somebody on the crew that was sort of nerdy and dorky, that did actually read about, like, it's like, all right, everybody, so today, oh, we're passing by that island. Now, the interesting thing about that island is there was actually a castle there built back in the 12th century, and there was a group of monks that, like, I mean, like, maybe some of the crew would find that fascinating. I think most of them would just be like, yeah, that's great, you know, maybe keep an eye out for enemy vessels that might attack us or something like that. Maybe pay more attention to that than reading off the history of some random island or some random kingdom, unless it leads to us getting money in some way. And there might have been people on certain pirate crews that knew a lot. They certainly weren't idiots. They knew a lot about, at least like a few people had to know about sailing. The captain did not necessarily have to be a sailor, but like, for example, Henry Avery, the real life king of the pirates, he was ex-Navy. He knew how to, you know, sail and everything like that. So sailing knowledge would have obviously been important. If you have a doctor on the crew, somebody that had good, you know, medical knowledge, you know, for that time period would be very crucial. Somebody that knows how to fix a ship, that is crucial. So they weren't a bunch of idiots. It's just that, like, you know, oh, Captain, I found this weird bone in the dirt. I wonder if it might belong to some ancient creature. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be like, can we make money off of it? No? All right, then just leave it in the dirt. And also, since it was a business, there had to be people, mostly the quartermaster, that dealt with, like, more of the business end of things, like who gets their share of the gold and the treasure and everything, so you got to have some mathematical skills to make that work. But yeah, when it comes to just hardcore history, you know, just like, all right, so the history of the world, this is very essential. Back then, not so much. In fact, I have the greatest history book about pirates that has ever been published, all right? And it is, of course, Piratology. It has a little compass in the cover and little gems, so you know it's cool, right? Piratology. Oh, look at that. Those are two real pirates right there. Oh, look at those pirates hanging out. This guy doesn't look really happy, though. Ha, powdered wigs. I was like, oh, here's a guy without a leg. I'm learning so much today. Oh my God, look here. A ribbon. A scrap of red pirate flag. To see it waved would send shivers through many a brave sailor. Ooh. So, yeah, there's really not much in this book about, you know, pirates being, like, super keen, intelligent, you know, scholars or anything like that. Oh my God, hidden treasure! Okay, so, in One Piece, though, you have a completely different side of this, though, a whole flip of this, where in One Piece we have the Void Century. Now, there are technically void centuries in our world as well, like Dark Ages, like the Greek Dark Age, where we don't have a lot of records. But the void century in One Piece is completely different, because the void century for One Piece is going to lead to a lot of other stuff, including the One Piece itself, which is this great treasure. So there's like a vested interest in learning about the history of the world, because the history of the world could actually lead you to this great treasure, which is why all the Yonko want Nico Robin, want some way to decipher the poneglyphs, because if you decipher the poneglyphs, you learn about the void century, ancient weapons. That's also important to get your hands on an ancient weapon, like what Crocodile wanted. That's kind of important. And yeah, we don't really have that in our world. Like I said, we have Dark Ages in our world, but they're not like the secret to uncovering a great power. Like, if we somehow discovered everything that happened during the Greek Dark Age, I don't think that would lead us to a super weapon that could, like, you know, unbalance the power structure in our planet. I don't think that's how that would go. We also don't have poneglyphs, to my knowledge, in our world, but maybe we do somewhere. You know, maybe we find poneglyphs that lead to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon that were lost to history, the ancient wonder of the world that might have maybe not even ever existed. But maybe the poneglyphs, we'll find poneglyphs that will lead to it or something. That'd be cool. And of course, we got things like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and stuff on tombs. So, I mean, that's probably where Oda took inspiration from these poneglyphs, but that's the difference. Okay, he who discovers the true history of the One Piece world will not only receive great power in the form of the ancient weapons, possibly, but also a great treasure and also fame beyond their wildest imagination. So that's why scholars of Ohara were deemed a threat to the world government. That's why they were Buster called into oblivion, and that's why Robin's role is so important as a Straw Hat. But in real life, not so much. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, if nothing else, talking about the scholars of the One Piece world. We also, of course, have, you know, Clover and Nico Olvia, but they're all dead now. So, like I said, pretty much the only scholars that were pirates or are currently pirates are Robin and Blackbeard, kind of. Everybody else was a scholar at Ohara, which, you know, is wiped out. I mean, there might be a few other scholars that maybe might have survived Ohara or were not at Ohara when it got destroyed, that were out doing research or whatever, and so they might be around there in the world somewhere. But it's a very dangerous thing that Oda paints in this world, where even trying to learn about the history of One Piece, you got to be very, very careful the kind of things you're researching, because even if you go to the library and try to research about the Void Century, there might be a Cipher Pole agent there that's the librarian that might be like, you know, relay it back to government, like, hey, somebody's trying to read about the Void Century here. You got to be careful what you're, like, what kind of questions you're asking, right? Well, anyway, yeah, scholars, important, you know, for certain aspects, but maybe just not for history and archaeology. All right, so with that being said, though, let's now dive into the greatest segment, the most enlightened segment on the Tekking101 channel, Frog Facts. Cue that intro.
Tekking. Frog facts. Frog facts. Frog facts. Frog facts.
Okay. I got a great one for you guys today. This is, oh God, look at my hair. All right, this is fantastic. All right. Prepare yourself for the majesty that is the desert rain frog. Not the dessert rain frog, mind you. The desert rain frog. So first of all, they all look incredible. There's different species. They all look incredibly pissed off. They look incredibly grumpy, incredibly pissed, of just like, ugh. Which kind of makes sense given they have a lot of natural predators that try to kill them, all right? A lot of these frogs we've been talking about are in, like, tropical environments. So for this one, we're actually moving to Africa. South Africa, to be precise. Not South Africa, the country, but actually South Africa as in the region. We're talking about Namibia. Namibia? Is that how you pronounce it? I hope that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. But it's on southwestern shore of southern Africa. And this little region here, right where the sandy beach ends, right before you get into the desert proper, because there's a really intense desert down there in southern Africa, and in between the ocean, you have this little strip of beach, and that is, in fact, where the desert rain frog lives. Now, the heat during the day is still very intense, so they tend to live under the sand, but at night, they emerge, and they're about the size of ping pong balls, and they kind of awkwardly kind of scoot. They don't walk so much as they scoot. I watched a BBC video of these guys, guys, and it's just adorable to see the way they walk. It's like they're scooting up and around the sand. And once again, it's at night, so they can only move around and eat like things like termites and insects. But there is so many things in the sand that will try to kill them, right? You got snakes, you got lizards, you got scorpions, which, you know, the scorpion and this frog that's the size of a ping pong ball, they're relatively the same size. The scorpion, the desert scorpions might actually even be bigger in that regard, so they got to be careful there. But yeah, lives in the sand, walking is really funny. They have transparent skin, which I could not actually find an example of that from the desert rain frog, but there are other frog species that their stomachs are actually transparent, and they're called glass frogs. You can actually see their organs from the outside, so that's kind of trippy. The desert rain frog has that, and they also have a cry or a croak that is very similar to a squeaky toy. So that might be why these things are so pissed off all the time, right? It's just like, man, this sucks. We have to live under the sand. We can only go out at night. There's snakes and all these things that could kill us out there in the desert just so we can get some food. We scoot around and we squeak like a toy and everyone's making fun of us. No wonder they're pissed off all the time. Except for this species that just looks really, 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 really sad. Oh my god, why does it look so sad? But yeah, anyway, that's the desert rain frog. It has a rough life, but it's doing the best it can. All right, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Oh yeah, we have to roll the dice. I forgot about that. All right, we're going to roll the dice now to determine the next video we're going to do. So once again, I'll put the reference table up over here. It's 1 to 10. If we roll a number we already rolled, we'll just re-roll. So let's go to it. Roll, 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 roll. Give it a bunch of rolls. All right, here we go. The next video we're going to be talking about, okay, Captain. I knew it was going to do that. We already talked about Luffy. Okay, next up is 7. Guess. Oh, 2. Okay, so Zoro. First mate, vice captain, but a role that is actually properly referred to as quartermaster, which is not a role that is spoken of in the One Piece world, but quartermaster would be like the vice captain, or at least the person on the crew that had the most authority, kind of next to the captain, or actually in a lot of regards had more authority than the captain, but we'll get into that. All right, next video will be first mate. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking, signing out.